is Saturday, December 7th. You know, I can tell you exactly what I was doing on this very same day 78 years ago. It was the day of infamy. Unfortunately, too many people, even you who are listening possibly, aren't aware of what was happening on that very important and critical day. My uncle and I were sitting in the living room listening to a Brooklyn Dodger game on the radio, and the sportscaster was describing every single play when all of a sudden the ball game was interrupted with flash, flash, hot news. And what came on was our Navy fleet in Pearl Harbor, in the island of Hawaii, was attacked by the Japanese nation. First reports were that our fleet was totally wiped out, destroyed, along with all the sailors and other people around those ships. It was a catastrophe. Well, the whole world stood still. Allow me to report that the world was actually shaking at what was taking place 78 years ago to this very day. I was just 14 years old. And immediately, well, it wasn't immediately because within a month I would be turning 15. But I decided right then and there that I was going to join the Marines. So I was ready to get my birth certificate and run out the door and find the recruiting station. Well, what actually happened was when I got there, they looked at me and I made the mistake of showing my birth certificate, and the officer couldn't be any kinder or nicer. He said, "Young man, we really want you, but why don't you wait a while? When you're 17, maybe we'll be able to get you into the service." So I went home a little bit disappointed, but yet the whole nation was involved trying to win this war where we were under attack by the Japanese Empire, flying planes and shooting bombs all over that place. And I hadn't seen the news until the very next day. The very next day showed pictures of destruction, pictures of sailors being blown out of their ships, pictures of sailors dying in the waters. It was a horrible catastrophe. Well, I am not going to tell you the whole thing completely because I have boiled it down to 10 little episodes, and they might be much more interesting and informative than me just talking at this point. So keep your eye on the screen and listen to what I have to say. Americans fired the first shot is number one. The first of many Pearl Harbor facts about the attack is that on the morning of December 7th, 1941, the Vickers-class destroyer USS Ward attacked and sank a Coyoteca-class midget submarine near the entrance to the harbor, making it not only the first shot fired on that day, but the first official American shots in the war. The Japanese sub's periscope was spotted above the water by the minesweeper Condor, which alerted the crew of the Ward, who then opened fire on the intruder. The second attack on Pearl Harbor lasted for about 2 hours. Coming in from all directions, the defenders had no idea from which direction to fire. Wave after wave planes arriving, targeting airplanes, ships, buildings and storage areas. Dive bombers, fighters, torpedo bombers, and high-level bombers blanketed the sky, dropping their deadly payloads across the island of Oahu. The two waves of aircraft enacted a heavy toll on their targets, namely Battleship Row. The attack on Pearl Harbor led to us entering World War II. On December 8th, the day after the attack on Pearl Harbor, Congress approved Roosevelt's declaration of war. 3 days later, Japanese allies, Germany and Italy, declared war against the United States. More than 2 years after the start of the conflict, the United States had finally entered into World War II. Number 3. The Japanese submarines were supposed to play a major role in the Pearl Harbor attack. The Japanese had planned to use their submarines for a number of different tasks before, during, and after the attack. Prior to the bombers and fighter planes arriving from the Japanese aircraft carriers to the north, these submarines were to scout and penetrate the defenses of Pearl Harbor. Once the attack from the air started, they were to release their torpedoes at prime targets and escape back out the channel. After the attack, these submarines were to station themselves in pre-designated spots of the islands to pick up any pilots who couldn't make it back to their carriers due to fuel or mechanical issues. One such pilot landed on Nanahu, a small Hawaiian island near Kanaki. Unfortunately for the Japanese pilot, his submarine had long left its position, standing him and stranding him all alone, left there out to probably die. Number 4, the Pearl Harbor attack did not destroy the entire American fleet. In the attack on Battleship Row on December 7th, the Arizona and Oklahoma were the only ships damaged beyond repair by bombs or torpedo hits. Of the 2,026 American sailors and Marines killed in the attack, 1,606 had been aboard these two ships. An aside, one of my partners in my advertising agency was one of those sailors who was blown out of the ship but was rescued. Well, 3 more battleships, the California, West Virginia, and Nevada, sank upright in the shallow water of the harbor. They were salvaged, and while many vessels did not return to the battlefield for several years, most suffered repairable damage. The battleship Missouri is now anchored there. Veterans can be laid to rest at Pearl Harbor. A wonderful USS Arizona fact is that survivors of Pearl Harbor have the option to join their lost comrades and make Pearl Harbor their final resting place. Crew members who served on board the USS Arizona during the attack may choose to have their ashes deposited by divers beneath one of the sunken Arizona's gun turrets. Roughly 30 Arizona survivors have chosen this option. Other military survivors can choose to have their ashes scattered wherever their ship was located during the attacks. Item number 7. Harbor was attacked to protect the invasion of southern resource area. Japan depended on the United States for the supply of natural and industrial resources, mostly oil, without which its forces would be significantly impaired. This led to Japan to target Southeast Asia, which was rich in minerals and oil, while they knew that such an invasion would lead to war against America. Japan decided to destroy America's Pacific Fleet to prevent American interference in its plan to access resources of countries in Southeast Asia, which Japan called Southern Resource Area. This was the primary reason behind the attack on Pearl Harbor. Number 8, headline, could have inflicted greater damage if they targeted different areas. Japan concentrated on just destroying battleships of the United States Navy, as it thought that the Pacific battle would be fought by the battleships. This proved to be wrong. Had Japan focused beyond the fleet and targeted Navy repair yards, oil tank farms, submarine base, and old headquarter buildings, it could have inflicted far greater damage. Because the concentration was on the battleships, American aircraft carriers were untouched by the attack. This led to America being able to rebuild and ultimately reverse the Japanese result by saying, "We won a great tactical victory and Pearl Harbor." And yet, it let them be destroyed. Number 9, the United States Arizona still leaks fuel. And that's to this day. But the day before the attacks, the USS Arizona took on a full load of fuel, nearly 1.5 million gallons. Much of that fuel helped ignite the explosion and subsequent fires that destroyed the ships. But amazingly, some fuel continues to seep out of the wreckage till this very day. According to the History Channel, the Arizona, quote, continues to spill up to 9 quarts of oil into the harbor each day. This adds to the emotional gravity of this memorial, and those visiting often refer to this phenomenon as the tears of the Arizona. Yes, as the tears of the Arizona, or referring to it as black tears. Number 10, now one of America's strongest allies. While most people can tell you that the Japanese were responsible for the attacks on Pearl Harbor, not everyone realizes that the Japanese now visit the memorial in droves. Japan, now one of America's strongest allies, is the largest source of international tourists to the state of Hawaii. Japanese visitors pay their respects at Pearl Harbor, just as Americans do. And personally, my wife and I had the privilege of going out there and visiting that memorial. And it does bring tears to your eyes to realize how many young American men and women serving in our military were sacrificed, either their lives or being wounded, and all our equipment with the millions and billions of dollars sinking to the bottom of the harbor. We have enough to thank heaven for, that this has changed not only America, but has changed most of the rest of the world. But more importantly, and I hope that you will agree, we haven't changed a fight going right now, not with an enemy from a foreign country, but with an enemy within. An enemy I will identify as a sin, as it is a sin against all of us. It's a sin to want to push hatred and discrimination rather than what we were all put on this earth to do, to love one another and hope for a better future for every American and anybody else throughout the world who is being understanding and loving their neighbors just as they want their neighbor to love them too. Well, I started a program after God whispered in my ear, "Earl, all your life you have been solving problems with solutions that involve people to take an interest and understanding that we can make things better than what that problem is creating." Well, when God gave me that message, I sat at the edge of my bed wondering, what was God meaning when he whispered that message to come up with a solution? And after thinking a few minutes, I said, God is commanding me to use his message, his words, his most sacred, I must say it again, his most sacred commandments to help us be better people, more understanding, and helping one another. So I have a mission. My mission in life, God willing, I want to change America to no longer be a land where we are fighting each other, dividing our nation. I want us to become a reunited States of America, a reunited States of America, being one nation, indivisible, with liberty, justice, freedom, and equality for all. That isn't so hard. I'm going to point out something very simple, which you may not remember, or not even be aware of. I'm going to ask you a question. The question is simple. Who is the largest advertiser, not only in the United States, but probably in the world? I know what you're thinking. You're thinking maybe it's Coca-Cola. Oh, maybe it's Facebook. Ladies and gentlemen, stop guessing. The answer may surprise you. The answer is the Christian faith. Huh? Why do you say that, Earl? Well, let me remind you. You can hardly go anywhere in the United States where on Sunday you're going to hear the bells going clang, 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 calling all ye faithful to come and worship together. You could hardly ever go more than a few streets, either in a small town, in a larger city, or anywhere across America, where you won't see a church that has a cross on it. You will see a cross on every church, every seminary, every hospital that is run by the Catholics. You will see a cross as a pendant on ladies' necks. You will see that pendant as a lapel pin on many men's jackets or shirts. The cross is a reminder to keep the faith. Keep the faith morning, noon, and night. And let me give you an example that you may relate to personally. Most of you follow a sports team, whether it's a baseball or a football team or a soccer team, and you can't go to a game. It even might be a high school, where people, the crowd, the parents, just ordinary people are wearing t-shirts, caps, waving towels with a logo, a symbol of their favorite team. It's just so normal. And how many times have you seen the bumper stickers and window decals of your favorite team? We're proud of it. That is how advertisers get you involved and participating. You become their multiple spokesperson around wherever you work, wherever you go, and wherever you are eating. That is what my intention is to do. I want to have every American wearing on their head my cap with my trademark logo. I want every person, especially you beautiful girls, wearing the t-shirts. And we have pins. And I have every marketing material to keep you reminded from morning, noon, and night that you and I, each of us, has to be responsible to fulfill the duty that God has commanded us to love thy neighbor. Love thy neighbor, and your neighbor will love you too. And one of the most important things I think I've done to make this happen is to write a new national hymn. We have a national anthem, and there's a difference between the anthem and a hymn. The anthem is our song praising God and our country, but primarily country. God bless America. A perfect example. An anthem is a direct call to God Himself. It's a direct message that God would like us to repeat. So I wrote an anthem, and I'm hoping it is simple, short, easy to remember, and that little boys and girls from kindergarten through graduating college will all sing that song, and everybody within their heart, their soul and mind will keep that simple, sacred command within their hearts and within their soul, and remember not only the words, but remember and act what God has commanded you and me to do for the rest of our lives, starting today. So allow me, please, if you don't mind, I'm going to introduce America's new hymn to you. I know I can't sing anymore. I used to think that maybe when I was 50 or even 60, I had a fairly good voice. So excuse my hoarseness. It's the melody and the words that need to be sunken into your mind like cement around your heart to remember and never forget, but mostly to perform the commandment. Are you ready? Will you excuse me? I'm going to try. Make every day Valentine's Day. Make every dream come true. Make every day Valentine's Day. Love your neighbor, and your neighbor will love you too. Love your neighbor, yes. Love your neighbor, and your neighbor will love you too.